Alright, hell yeah. So these videos are probably just more for me. But hell yeah, what we're going to talk about is how to switch positions when doing spins. And so we're just going to watch kind of these clips all the way through. But when I spin, I switch positions in the boat. So I'm on one side and then I'm on the other. Luckily, with what I call just like a high side spin, where I'm on the higher side and I'm rotating the boat, I don't have to switch my paddle blade around. Okay, so hell yeah. So this video we're going to be looking at, what's the fastest motion. So I think right there is probably the easiest. So all these spins are going to be set up with a pry, and then I'm going to have to switch position. So I'm going to have to go from here, and then I'm going to have to get all the way over there. And then so I think this is the most sensical, is to give up on your pry stroke, put a hand down, and then just, muscle yourself into a 180. Do whatever you need to do. There's a couple benefits to actually put this hand down that I can work on as a more of a skill. I've talked in one of the longer videos that when I do this pry, the boat has a tendency to over rotate, and so that's kind of what happened. Where if I get to here, maybe I know the boat's gonna pry all the way around, and so I can transition earlier. And if I get my hand on this tube, I can effectively shove it in that direction. Two things happen. If I get my hand on the tube, I'm weighting this tube, and this is helping me kind of low side turn this way, and that can prevent that rotation. So that would be a counter. So the boat is over rotating, but if I try to low side this tube with weight, and by putting my hand down early, and I get the hand right there, but if I kind of reach over to the side, but probably right here, this is the only place where I'm actually stable, because what you need is you need to get a pivot point underneath your center of mass. Okay, so hell yeah, so that's just going to be something to work on. Putting the hand down, if I can make that more technical. Now here we do it without putting a hand down, so we just rotate. And then we just, and the cool thing about this is I don't have to switch, hands with my paddle. But that time, that last one wasn't as good. So here is a pretty good breakdown, because I finally got some footage where we can kind of see into that compartment. And so as I'm coming into this, I'm typically going to have my feet wide. Like I'm going to have this leg in that corner, this closer leg in this corner. And I'm going to, the boat is going to rotate this way. I'm going to rotate the opposite way. You know what I mean? So the boat's going to rotate a 180. I'm going to kind of constantly focus on where I'm looking. Something that I do know is that this leg right here is going to push off. And so in our wanting, I needed to make more paddle tutorials, because this is new to this year. Having this leg feel like a flat plank kind of up against this side tube, even though in this shot it's just the shin that's actually in contact. But that'll really strengthen your paddling, especially if you have your legs, farther into these corner pockets of the R1 compartment. Is if you have this thigh totally flat against this tube, then I feel like it's I'm gonna nickname it like a plank of wood. You know what I mean? Because like hell yeah, it's kind of feels flat like that. And if all you're sitting on is a hip bone, that's going to be highly unstable. So you have this large, it's the only flat spot that we have. And I was even tempted to throw in one of the comments to be like, oh, I think we really need to have this almost impressioned in our R1 boats. Definitely ramped, have a foam ramp angle, and so we're kind of more towards the inside and we can heavily edge the outside, but also kind of cupped to that thigh, because that's where we're getting most of our stability from. Okay, hell yeah. So when we do transition, we're going to jump to the other side, and in that time I kind of popped up real high. The secret sauce is to, if I'm going to get over there, I need to pull this outside foot underneath me. So this foot right here is going to come underneath my center of mass. So it's going to get tucked as close underneath my seat as possible. And what I'm going to do is then I'm going to lean forward. Here I feel like I'm rotating late, where I usually feel like I'm leaning forward to the bow of the boat, but forward in this direction is just forward. But now if you see this leg, it gets crunched up, and I'm essentially leaning my weight over it. So just pretend like you have a drop, a plumb bob, where the center of mass is now, up over that foot far enough. And even here, we don't do it like textbook. I feel like I'm kind of sitting up. But that's the gist, is to get this foot underneath you so you feel like you're just rolling over it. And in this case, at least I was able to physically stand up fairly easily on that foot. Okay, hell yeah. So let's take a look at that one all the way through. Get that foot underneath, and then lean forward and get up and over it. But that's the sensation that you're going to be feeling, is you're going to feel like you're going to get up and over that foot. Else it's too much to just like lean over. If your feet are still farther apart, there's no way you can lean and just get over there. You have to lean and then have your feet as kind of like a pivot, like almost like a contact point of a wheel, where you are now the driving top of the wheel, and that contact point is underneath, and you're kind of just rolling over there. So that's kind of how it should feel like. The second one, get that foot underneath. I think that was a little bit better. So let's, so this foot is over here in this corner. As we do this spin, I'm going to bring that knee in and then plant it and then lean forward, and then that's going to be the main pivot. And so even that allows this foot to transition to its final location, and this foot ultimately becomes the pivot. But again, I'm trying to get it underneath my seat as close as as close as possible to underneath my center of mass when I start to lean my body. All right, so hell yeah. And so let's kind of watch this second one. Was that the second one? Yes, that was the second one. All right, so hell yeah. Was that the second one? No, this is going to be the second one. So here we go. Get that foot underneath and then lean, and then hell yeah, way better pivot. Now this last one, we also don't establish the surf. We need to get low into the trough. This is just a one and done. Like if you get low and powered into the trough and get this to where it's in front of this wave, this has got to be in front of this wave, the surf will go, else it just won't go. This wave is kind of technical. But hell yeah. And then on this one, I'm spinning. Let's see what this leg does. I don't even bring it in. I kind of just know that I've not gonna make this spin anyway, maybe. But I don't get that leg underneath me. And see how this leg is way out in front. So I could lean, but there's just no way I'm gonna lean past that contact point. And then so I physically have to put down a hand and then get up over that leg. So that leg is the most crucial. And if you can kind of so it's going to be, when we do spin, I need to get over there after this spin. It's this outer leg that I'm going to shove right underneath me and then pivot over it. So that time we weren't able to. And so now we can go back to the first one, because the first one we did, and I guess we did a second spin. We kind of we did save that one. Yeah, we did save that one, but it was just a slower, we used our hand. But that also shows that maybe this is a way to actually save a surf, to really lean the body back, pry, and then reach for that spot. Because when I put my hand down and wait, it's effectively shoving the boat down into the trough. And then so that potentially helped me seal the deal on that one. All right, hell yeah. And then this one, let's see what we do with the leg. Well, we're just kind of so far towards the middle. We almost, and we just kind of know we're not going to do that one. But I think we also don't lean off this corner. There's a chance that, hey, if it's not going, where to put the emphasis? Well, lean all the way onto this back corner, pry it in, and then it's kind of going to be like an over-rotated, and it could be a shoulder turn to get back in. But we just start trying to low side save. I think that's what we must have been doing. We must have just thought, hey, maybe if I could low side this. I don't think so. I think if we're not going to make it, and I'm going to save this, it's going to be jump to the back corner, aggressively pry, get the boat to swing out wide of this feature, and then kind of drop over there, and then hopefully over-rotate back into the trough. But we were just over on that side. All right, so hell yeah. So I guess we can take a look at that one. So here's the one that did not go. All right, so let's take a look at this one, because we do use our hand to push down. So just maybe take a look at this one a couple times. Hell yeah. And it's over-rotated, so it's fine that I put my hand down in the middle, because it helps throw the boat, you know, deeper into the trough at least. So that is kind of a benefit to maybe this move of doing the pry, setting up the pry, and then just pushing down with the boat and trying to push it back into the wave. Because I'm essentially going to be here, and then I'm going to jump back to this thwart right there. Some of these and that could be a benefit, is I'm going to pry and then shove the boat in. So let's actually take a look at this one to see if, like, where I land. So after this rotation, yeah, I do land in the same spot. There is an opportunity to pry this all the way around deeper and then shove. So that's fascinating. This is more of a static turn of just driving into the trough, doing this rotation, and then just knowing that I'm at a planing angle to keep surfing. But there's a chance that I can lean farther back, spin this, and then lay my hand onto this thwart and then jump to the back compartment. And while doing that, I'm essentially pushing the boat into the trough more. And so I think that's just also a cool move. Anytime that I'm pushing on the front of the boat and it physically moves forward, that's almost like a trick in itself. And so I'll have to pay attention to that. So especially on this spin, lay back more, and then use my hand to push the boat into the trough and to jump in this back compartment. Those two things coupled will drive the boat in farther. And especially if I was able to over-rotate and then just go with it, because I'm trying to do the switch early, you know, or as early as possible, so where I could even do a harder pry, a later switch, so a harder pry to over-rotate, and then be already over-rotated and still be over there in this far corner, and then start pushing. And that would make sense, because that would low side turn me this direction. I've also been trying to focus on trying to do this where if I do pry, so this would be perfect little practice to stay over there, try to over rotate the boat on that lower side, and when I do, then get more around, but then push on this tube and hopefully I'm over rotated where I'm pushing the boat down this trough at this angle. Because that's essentially where I need to be with this paddle stroke. That paddle stroke right there, even though, you know, all it is just that. I think that would be cool if I was able to initiate that from this side of the boat with pushing my hand into this, jumping to this back compartment. But, you know, I would have to be over here, and then I would have to jump to this diagonal compartment. So that would be kind of a lot going on. But that would be something that would be cool. All right, so now I'm just kind of brainstorming. But let's brainstorm off this one, because that's where it would be. It would be this move, which is the opposite. This move is a pile turn. And then I would say the boat is over-rotated, and I'm pushing down, and guess what happens? I'm driving that way. I can't stay on this tube because this is effectively a low side turn that way, and so I have to jump to this corner, which I do. So even in this one, I'm doing this, and I'm pushing to this back corner. So I'm on this tube. No, I'm sorry. See, some of these turns start with a low side, so I I classify this as a low side pile turn. Ultimately, I'm going to turn off the pile. I get the best chance of turning off the pile if I start to drive in on this low side, because it gets all this weight and momentum down the trough and angled. And so when things start looping and catching current and then driving into the pile, that's helpful. So I do switch sides. So I switch sides right here, and this is effectively like entering in on this side. But now I have all that dynamic built up right here, trying to catch water on the bow, and that's going to drive up into the pile. I've already done my pry, and so those things make this, easier to over rotate. And if it was over rotated just a little bit more, and so what side I'm effective, even though I'm kind of doing this from neutral, essentially I can, so I'm coming in on this low side, and essentially I can jump all the way over to this corner and even deep, and then throw in a pry off this corner. And when I do that, then I have to jump to that side of the boat. So I'm effectively jumping to that corner. And so if I over rotate, pushing my hand down, it's going to push that direction, and then I'm on the, and so right here, let's say technically I'm on this tube and I'm angled that way, even though I'm barely angled that way, but I'm over rotated, angled that way, weights on this tube. That's a low side turn. And so a lot of this R1 surfing is trying to get back to like a fundamental position. Like every time you spin and you're just ready to hit and peace out, you have like you're in this intermediate, it's the beginning of a new turn. So like right here, I'm on a low-sided turn, and now I'm turning up against, over here, there's not much of a pile. It's almost be setting up a shoulder turn if I was to turn this direction. But hell yeah. So this is pushing on this tube, sitting on this tube, pushing on this tube. It's going to drive that turn around. I'm going to jump to over here because as this turns, that's going to build up on this tube. It's going to low side and bite this tube. And so I want to be on that far side, and that's the side that we jump to. All right, so hell yeah. So let's take a look at that. This is, and again, let's talk about the entrance of this. So this is a low side start, and then I switch to the high side to do a pile turn, which I'm going to coin a low side pile turn. The turn is always, unless there's other descriptive terms, the turn is always with a pry on the high side. So there's the pry, there's the high side. But to get there, I start with being on this low side. So we do a low side turn into a high side pile turn. But I'm just going to call this a low side pile turn. So low side turn, low side, and then the pile turn. So that's what I'm going to classify this as, because I think it's just really easy. If I didn't start with this low side, I would just call it a pile turn. Drove into the, and then, hell yeah, I made an hour and 40-minute video just about terminology, and I want to get better at that. So this also is paddling in on the shoulder. We classify a shoulder turn as throwing the bow into this shoulder current and turning this direction, or as we're looking counter, as if we're looking up rivers the clock, we would spin counterclockwise, or this direction. That's a shoulder turn. But when paddling, if we're paddling into a wave from the shoulder, we're always paddling on this side. If I was paddling on the other side, I would be paddling on the pile side. So you can enter a surf wave from the pile side or the eddy side. And I'm just going to call this paddling into the wave from the eddy. So it's and I don't want to confuse that with eddy turn, and so I'll figure out how I said it. But I said something about it's a eddy paddle. So this is, and you'll find that if you're ever kind of getting pieced out, that to rotate your boat, doing an eddy, I want to call it an eddy turn, but I don't want to use terminology twice. But essentially I'm using I'm paddling I don't want to call it paddling into the eddy either, but I'm catching the wave by paddling up the eddy, just on the eddy side. So eddy side paddling. I'm going to have to figure out what rolls off the tongue. But this is catching this wave by paddling up the eddy. I could catch this wave by paddling on the pile side. So this is catching this wave by paddling on the eddy side. So I'm just going to say it's eddy side paddling. So we're going to be eddy side paddling, which also really sucks you in. That's the whole idea of doing this eddy side paddling. If you're ever kind of getting pieced out, if you can get the boat to roll around that eddy line, just because if you can paddle along that eddy, paddle into the wave with, I don't even know how to friggin' say it no more. But I don't know, it just follows a streamline that's more natural. So if you're ever practicing that, sometimes you can kind of just get sucked in. And especially here, I can get sucked in way easier than paddling on the pile side. Even though with setup with speed, I think it's easier. No, that's not true. Some waves are easier to enter when you're over near the pile, and some not. Depends. Like my strong side is this side, and I actually find it easier to paddle in on this strong side, and it's the eddy side. So it's kind of fascinating. It's conducive to spins because it's hard to drive in and then square your boat up. That's a skill in itself. All right, so hell yeah. Completely forgot what we were even talking about, but we were doing a spin and throwing down a hand, so throwing down that hand. Hell yeah. And then what I really want to try is do this spin and do an early transition and push down and then start to get the boat to go that way and then get back on this pile real easy. And then I think we were saying we could have set it up again. Is that where we're going with this video? Like once we're here, we could do another spin. I don't think so. I think we're about done. So hell yeah. But it is good to note, like we talked so long about paddling around this eddy and doing an eddy turn. Yeah, I don't want to call it an eddy turn. An eddy paddle turn. I think that I like the term because you're turning around this eddy, so it is a function of a turn. It's just not a 180. Because right here, this is an eddy turn as well. So I'm doing so one is a spin, and then this is just a turn. So I'm gonna do an So if I did a pile spin, that's So the spins, these are pile spins. Yeah, holy hell. That took me a while. So one is a spin, one is a turn. This is an eddy turn. So paddling in, this is just a turn. Just a kind of, it's not a 180, but I'm just turning into this. That is a spin, and that's up against the pile. If this was facing this direction and I was spinning towards the eddy, that's an eddy spin, an eddy 180. And then hell yeah. Now going over here, I'm just going to aggressively paddle on this side. And this is where you think like you might get pieced out, but just know that if you get to the shoulder, it's flatter trajectory, not as steep as a trough, and it's you can just paddle over there and just aggressively sweep, and your boat's going to come around. And so I'm going to call that an eddy turn. So thank God we kind of figured that out. So this is an eddy turn. And this is where, let's say this is my strong side, and then, I'm ready to surf across. Well, jump to your offside and then start prying. That's going to be the more complicated setup of being on your strong side and then jumping to your offside and instantly prying. But when it comes to surf, that is probably the easiest thing. And what happens is you're just surfing back and forth. This is the elements of surfing back and forth. Let's say this is my strong side. It's not, it's my offside, but let's say this is my strong side. I'm going to paddle the boat the other direction, and now I'm going to get ready to ferry this across using a pry. And then that pry, I'm on the high side, is going to be what kind of gets me going across. You know, and if this was my offside, that's pretty easy. You know what I mean? Do a pry right there, and then just control this pry across on my offside. Do some forward paddling. But that left side is my strong side. Let's see what my what my offside is. This right side is my offside. So how easy is this? Jump to your offside and just start forward sweeping and doing this eddy turn. Instead of staying on this side and trying to pry the boat the other direction, which is probably doable, sometimes this is the easiest because we're going towards this corner, and as long as we sweep the boat, as long as we hit this corner and keep sweeping the boat, that eddy turn, now we got that figured out, that eddy turn is is pretty easy, just because you might not get kicked out over there, and as long as you're doing sweeping eddy turns, the boat will probably turn around, jump to the other side, and then maybe this is your strong side and you're just ready to go. So hell yeah. So again, it's good to work on your offside, especially when surfing, because it opens up doors. If you're trying to do everything from one side, like it's brutal. Like I spent years doing that, and then you're just kind of looking for big surfs. And I mean, I think once you start paddling on both sides, then it opens up the doors. Then it becomes a kayak. A kayak's not just going to be like, oh, I'm just going to paddle on one side only. And so, all right, hell yeah, that's it. This video got long, but thanks for joining me. Hell yeah. All right, thanks again.